dúkùdùkù lóko Podium International wọ́n ti wà tipẹ́tipẹ́ látìgbà tí wọ́n ti ń bàbọ̀ wọn ò fìgbà kan tẹ́rì o wọ́n ti wá ṣe bẹ̀bẹ̀ wọ́n ti gbé bẹ̀bẹ̀ dé Podium Cinema ni wọ́n tún gbé dé Podium Cinema lórí YouTube ẹ fọ́lọ̀ wọn kẹ́ ẹ láìkì wọn kẹ́ ẹ subscribe ibẹ̀ lẹ́tì mọ̀ wọ àwọn àjá àbálẹ̀ fíìmù ẹ̀dọ̀kí fíìmù tó léfo gan tààrà Podium Cinema mo bẹ́rí fún yín fíìmù mẹ́sàn-án ọ̀tọ̀ọ̀tọ̀ ni wọ́n kó jáde o àwọn gbàǹkọ́gbé fíìmù èkíní májẹ̀mú ẹ̀gbọ́n èkejì my wet ẹ̀kẹta ọmọ ẹni ẹ̀kẹrin àlàmú èkó ẹ̀karùn-ún àìmọ̀ ṣe wá rí pé nǹkan kì í ṣẹ̀ṣẹ̀ ràgbó ó kọjá bẹ́ẹ̀ eléyìí lẹ́ti kẹjù èdè Yorùbá ni wọ́n fi ṣe àwọn fíìmù yìí ẹlẹ́ẹ̀kẹfà sẹ́ẹ̀kẹsàn-án èdè òyìnbó ni wọ́n kọ́ ẹ̀kẹfà tẹ́mà èkeje the casting ẹ̀kẹjọ M1 the detective ẹ̀kẹsàn-án 100 M1 the detective at 100 orí síríìsì lẹ́fì máa wò ó ìyẹn dàgbéléwò nìyẹn Podium International Podium Cinema ẹ fọ́lọ̀ wọn kẹ́ ẹ láìkì wọn lórí YouTube wọ́n wà lórí Facebook wọ́n wà lórí Instagram Podium Cinema ó ti dọbẹ̀ ẹ subscribe.
Good evening and welcome to today's program, Matters Arising. Today we're going to be looking at two interesting topics, really. The recent building collapse in Lagos, and we'll also be looking at the ongoing situation in Sudan. I'm not alone. I've got a regular guest, Mr. Alex Ajala and Major Termi Aghedo. I'm just going to bring them over now. Baba Ajala, could you say hello to our viewers?
Yeah, good evening, and once more, happy for you to having me again this evening. I hope we'll be able to do justice to what we need to discuss. Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome to today's program, Major Aghedo. Just say hello.
Good evening. Good evening, viewers, listeners. Happy Sunday. Hope we have a nice time today.
Yeah, we're looking at, so we'll be looking at two topics today, the building collapse in Lagos, and we'll also be looking at very critically the ongoing situation in Sudan. Let me just put a little recap on the Sudan one, which is live. It's got I don't know what kind of history it's got, but this country has been merged with other countries. So we've got South Sudan and we've got Egypt. They were separated in 1956, and we had Egypt go their way, Sudan and South Sudan go their way. And now the country is tearing themselves, the military are tearing themselves apart. But before we come to Sudan, there's a critical issue that we often overlook in our own part of the country, which is Nigeria, which is building. I don't know whether we have any building control or building regulation, or there's in the UK, there's what they call British standard. So you have to meet that British standard, which sometimes may or may not be higher than the international standard. But in Nigeria, we've decided to go with international standard. I don't know. In November 2021, we had Fourscore, the high rise, come down, and we thought, oh, that would have been the end. But that was not the end. Quite a lot of built properties have still collapsed in Lagos, and just Wednesday, another 7-story building collapsed. At first, they said nobody died, but they've come back yesterday to say they've recorded one dead. I will start with Baba Ajala. Why are we still getting these unfortunate incidents of building collapse?
Well, the situation is historic. I keep on saying. We have these building regulations that are of international standard, but are they followed? foundation in Lagos have been in a very poor state. A lot of buildings sink. The
Yeah, but,
few
but
ones that,
this is a new building. This is a
yeah,
new property. So
yeah, because first of all, number one, the mixture for the slab construction might not be very, it's not up to standard. If you look at the rumble that fell, you will
yeah.
not find any holding slab. Everything had turned into dust, and the rebars in them are showing out like what I would call the carcass of a rotten animal. You see, we are living in danger seriously in Africa, and particularly with reference to Nigeria. We have we don't meet up with the regulations, the building regulations, and the town planning. The space between houses is not measured. You find that some houses are built with you see, an angle that is unrelated to the position of the particular foundation. You see, they become maybe 30 degrees to each other, and that affects the balance of the buildings on the foundations. So our foundation are very poor. That's one interesting part. So when a building is getting to a higher rise and the foundation is poor, then you find that the building starts to lean towards one side. And the rapidity of that lean will cause the collapse of such buildings. I had some years back, I had a young lady who was monitoring building collapse in Lagos for me, both important ones and small ones. She was recording about 120 buildings collapsing in Lagos every month.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Although the press is bringing it that there are 20 building collapse in 2020 alone, 2022.
there are more
Uh,
than that. You see, is the what the press is showing is they have not gone to the interior. They have not gone right into Lagos itself to see how these buildings are collapsing. Even bungalows are collapsing
yeah.
all over the place. The record the press had given is just they are papering the record.
When
That's
1,000 casualty happens, they tell you it's just 10.
yeah, that's the situation. We
Yeah.
have a very poor building regulation in Nigeria, even though on paper we have international standards to be followed. But in reality, in practice, it is not followed. There are no inspection at every stage of building. The built-up system has to be inspected by experts who will now go and sand the concrete and check whether it is the correct standard before any slabs are laid. But it's not been done in Nigeria. All you do, some of the time, they give the inspectors some money and they go drinking beer instead of going to do their job. And they are risking a lot of people.
I'll just come to major. I know in the military we have multi-skilled, and in areas of disaster, the military also help in house construction, construction, and even during the time of COVID, the military helped in bringing Project Nightingale in London. Why is it that more than a year after first score, everybody would have thought, oh, after first score, we've gone out of the worst case scenario. Uh, what we know this is not a military facility. This is a residential. What is it that we are not doing that is causing all these houses to come down?
There are many factors responsible for collapsed buildings. Cheap materials, cutting corners by contractors, by the developers themselves. Like in the case of First Core, he was cutting corners. But as the one for First Core, I'll tell you there are two major reasons for his own. One is he was cutting corners by not using professionals. Two, impunity, because he has godfathers. That, oh, I've only registered 10th floor. I can build 25. My godfathers are there. I can find my way. I can bribe my way. Impunity. That is what has been majorly responsible for collapse of buildings. Oh, when the officials come, we can always bribe them. And truly, lo and behold, you can bribe them. When they come like that, you give them money, they go away. They look the other way. And in some cases, they even go back to their offices to report to their bosses that this is the envelope from
That has
the,
been said.
yes, from either the developer or the real owner of the building or the contractor. We have standard. There are buildings that are there, that have been there for 20, 30, 40, 50 years and are still standing.
I mean, I drove past Lagos Island and I saw those mighty buildings the British constructed during the colonial era. Some of them are
20-story
more than,
building is still on Broad Street.
yeah, some of them are more than 10-story building and they're still standing.
They're still standing.
And if you,
Kappa and
and if you,
Dalbato, G Kappa, the DTV, they're all building houses and they're not collapsing.
and if you look at the drainage of those houses, the drainage are very deep compared to what we are having today, where they just put two shovels away from the ground and say that's drainage. Live with it.
Those buildings have pillars that are more than 50 feet below. Some are up to 100 feet below as pillars. Such buildings can never collapse. But these days, the contractor will tell you it's sheer waste of money. Where they are supposed to use 20-millimeter rods, they will use 5. And even the 5 are rusting ones.
So they're used ones already, not even...
Yes, not fresh ones. So if we can eradicate godfatherism, official bureaucracy, and bribery, buildings will not collapse. If you don't have the money, you don't build.
That's the other thing I was going to ask, that what do we do? Baba Ajala, I'm looking at regulations. In the UK, there is a Federation of Master Builders, and to get accredited, they have to see that you have these skills. Major Aghedo is mentioned earlier that in the case of Fourscore, he was using a substandard materials and maybe unprofessional builders. Do you think there should be a statutory body? I don't want to say regulatory body, statutory body, where before you go on and say you want to be a builder, because now I believe the builders of this property in Banana Island are supposed to be called to question. How did they get their license? What really happened? And should there be a statutory body? Like, if you want to work in any field, you need to go and get certification. You need to be certified that you can do this job. Because this is also, if the developers or the contractors or the owners are calling people to come build it, and those people are insisting that if you cannot build to standard, then we cannot take on the job. Because if those people who are taking on the job goes on to do the substandard, they themselves, their life is at risk, because whilst building, it may collapse on them and they could die. So do you think it's now, and how do we go about it?
Well, what is happening in that country is that whether regulations and statutory bodies and inspectorate systems are non-functional. People are just giving papers to build.
And something again I failed to mention, the Lagos State town planning officer said this building was not even approved. So how did they get to 7-story building for an unapproved building?
that that area of land that the building was set on top should not have been approved for any building. It should have been a green space between the other buildings that were around. There are too many clusters of buildings without any regulatory pass gaps between them. Yeah, from the video I looked at, and even by using Google Earth to look at the location, that building itself should not have appeared at all.
I'm going to play the video, but because there's an important thing I want to. I will just play the video so we can see.
Man, Jesus! Oh my God. Oh my God.
That's one of the video, and then we'll see the rubble.
Some people still there. Some people still there inside. Abioga. People there inside now. Oh! Carrier. Ah!
Yeah, so the emergency
Response.
management, they were saying that it was a truck. I can see a truck that hit that building, and the way that building fell does not show that it was hit by a truck.
If a truck hit it, the truck will have been part of the collateral damage. There will have been no room for it to have escaped
Yeah,
from the rubble, because the first floor just sank down and the rest
Yeah.
started padding on top. And if it was a building that was made with the correct DPC system, those slabs will have been falling on top of each other and not turning into dust.
yeah.
So there have been corners cut in that building itself. You see, this is the problem we are facing with the fact that the country itself is not accountable to its citizens.
Anybody.
Because if they are accountable, there will have been inspectorates, building inspectors at every stage. If you are building a high rise, at every stage you have to get a certificate of competence that this thing is good to go to the next level. And what level they can go, they will sign that this particular building can only go up to 5 levels if you have planned this. And if you go beyond that, you'll be asked to remove your building because it's a danger in the future. We've seen here in Britain where people do additions to their building, and the council will say, no, this particular additions are not certified. They are not fit to go. You see, we don't have that culture in Nigeria. Rather, we will bribe our way out. I want to build it up. And because you are looking at the investment you are going to get from it and the rent, you are endangering the people. It's good that it fell as it is now. What if there were people inside and when it fell?
That would have been disaster. Before we go on break, I will just call Major Termi. What do you think should happen to the regulators who failed to notice that such buildings are coming up and did not do anything, stating that there was no approval, and the contractors and the builders themselves? I think people should be held responsible.
Those that are saying that the building was not approved are only trying damage limitation to the body involved, to the body concerned, Lagos State Development, whatever they call themselves. They know about it. They cannot erect any building, especially in that banana island, without approval. it is not possible for any contractor or any landowner to start that project without them knowing. You cannot build anything in Lagos without them knowing it. They are lying. They're always lying. Let me go back again to First Core. Termi only had an approval for 10 stories. He went up to 15.
Yeah.
He was arrested. Somebody high and mighty, I will even mention name, Osinbajo, came in. That's the vice president. Termi was released. Because of that, he continued to 21. That is the impunity. Connection. Those that don't have connection are using their money. Until we stop all that nonsense, until contractors are put in life prison, until developers are jailed, until landowners, builders, owners of properties themselves are put behind bars for endangering lives, it will never come to an end. It's an ongoing thing. It's an everyday thing, especially in Lagos, where Godfather
maybe they enjoy this impunity and that's why they don't want the country to break.
I even want to go further, that since we are not God-fearing, since some of us are bloodsuckers, they could use those buildings as disasters for area where they're going to converge and drink their blood. That is for those who will say, I am being sentimental or whatever.
I don't think there's any sentiment in this. We'll just go for a short break and then come back and then see what's going on in Sudan.
Come one, come all to Podium Function Hall, a place for your network sessions, birthday parties, private parties, expos, conferences, seminars, and master classes. Podium Function Hall is the place to be. With a hall capacity of 50 plus, full air condition, starboard, and standby generator, with location in Ikota Villa, Mega Chicken Bus Stop. Contact us on 0701 844 8188 or +44 7442 177 677. Podium Function Hall, events made alive. Come one, come all.
Sorry. I was gonna say let's go to Sudan and see. It's still unfolding. In the last few minutes, there's been a 3 hours ceasefire that's been agreed. Whether it's going to hold, we don't know, and whether they're going to continue overnight, we don't know. But for those of us who do not know what's the background story, the military and the paramilitary, they helped to remove Omar al-Bashir, the former head of state who ruled for so many years. And now they are now fighting each other on how to control the government. One of them wants to continue forever. One of them wants to hand over to civilian, and they cannot agree how to do it because there's so much assets that's involved. So they don't. How can the civilian have oversight function on the military? I don't know. What's your take in the unfolding events, Major Aghedo?
Right. The two that ganged up against the former president knew within themselves that their alliance is not going to last. They would not trust each other. And as long as there's no trust, the gang up is bound to fail.
Wow.
Now, the one that wanted 2 years only has been with the former president for a very long time. He has acquired, he has embezzled, he has accumulated more than enough. He only wants to stay for 2 years and go and enjoy his loot. Whereas his new partner that came on board with him to remove the former person is a beginner. He too is looking forward to amassing big wealth. That is why he's envisaging 10 years. He may not even stop at 10 years. He could even go further if permitted, because he may even get rid of his partner before the 10 years, then he will now be in charge. You see, the African leader has a mind of remaining in power forever, especially where they can impoverish the people, where they can dictate to them, where the people have no say, where the people cannot react. And this is one thing we should try to avoid in location 419 right now, because that is where we are actually heading to as well. This one-party system that is dominating, that is bribing, that is threatening, that is oppressing and suppressing, that's exactly what we can see happening in Sudan now.
Let me come to Baba Ajala. Baba Ajala, I know you have a lot of friends in South Sudan. I don't know if you have in Sudan itself. Omar al-Bashir is gone. I guess he's still in prison, or maybe he's in house arrest.
Yeah.
Do you think there's going to be a pathway? Can these two come back again and agree anything, seeing that there is no trust?
Unfortunately, it is the West that all of us hate that is going to broker peace.
This morning, Egypt and South Sudan are saying they've offered to mediate.
Yeah. And then they'll be sponsored by the West. That's
to go and broker peace.
South Sudan, that there's no peace.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so South Sudan and Egypt have agreed to be the mediators.
South Sudan, that there's no peace, want to broker
peace. You see, this is one thing with the Africans. They are so well verbose in the pretense of trying to show to the world that they are capable of doing things.
And I don't know, before you go on, Baba Ajala, United Nations has been very vocal in the last 24 hours. We've not heard anything from ECOWAS. We've not heard anything from African Union. We've not heard anything from the big players in Africa. What's going on? Is it that they're just observing?
They don't want to offend any of the parties. That is one grave thing that happens in Africa. You have to call a sword a sword, a spade and a spade. And we are avoiding this truism in the development of the African land space. And we cover it up by saying we are united. We are never united. The problem with Southern Sudan is because most of the people there, even though they are Arabic speaking, are not of the same ethnicity. So they will wantonly kill each other without any recourse.
Because Major Aghedo have said there's a lot of embezzlement at play here. A lot of properties, a lot of they've acquired so much wealth. One wants to go and retire, the other one says no. But they need to give power to the civilians. They need to give power to the people to decide. I don't know. Should Africa be looking at a new configuration? Maybe like a conference like African Union can sit down and say, see, the Africa we have today is not the Africa for Africans. Let's sit down and withdraw our boundary. Maybe that would bring peace a little. Do you think it's something that would work for Africa, Major Aghedo?
I don't think so. Going back to since when I was born up till now, in the last 70 plus years, there has never been anything like you are suggesting now. This, what that you have said, will have to come through a revolution. And it will take a country that is practicing it to bring it up. But right now, nepotism and tribalism
it has to do with the will.
is strife in the African blood. Nepotism, tribalism is so strife in the African blood that it will take a while for such a thing to come up.
Yeah, I think if an awareness is thrown on board, because Professor Ali Mazur late now has suggested what Emola said, that he believes there should be a geopolitical reconstruction of Africa. I added that geopolitical historical reconstruction, which is what we are trying to propagate as far Nigeria now. The problem with Africa is the fact that you have put communities that have nothing in common together in a single rigid political process, and you expect it to work. And sometimes when you compromise to work together, like in the case of Sudan, now, if you find out the guy who is leading the militia is not from the same ethnic community with the other person who says, no, let us. So that differences, which
Will always be there.
we refuse to recognize, is one of the
So
greatest.
somebody is saying Sudan will not listen to African Union. Is that saying that the African Union is a toothless organization who just go to Addis Ababa and showcase the kind of flights their country can buy for them, and they're not really tackling the problem of Africa?
I think the guy who said Sudan will not listen to African Union is right. Sudan will listen to the League of Arab Nations because they see themselves as Arabs, not Africans. And funny enough, the people in Ethiopia don't see themselves as pure Africans. That's a fact. If you go to history, they say that they are just in Africa, but they are not Africans.
Maybe they would have to relocate their country either to create a new continent for themselves.
They see themselves as exclusive. You see, when you look at the history of the African continent and the constructions of the countries governed by the Europeans, those countries are not African countries. We have
exactly, which is why I said maybe Africans need to, maybe like you said, to an awareness. Maybe we need to enlighten future leaders. Maybe there needs to be a training ground for leaders who will take on national assignments.
No, I will not say a training ground. What we need to do is a massive age of enlightenment in Africa to showcase the fact that, first of all, one, we haven't had any independence in Africa. We have only taken over countries that Europeans created, and we are trying to manage it to find a meaning to an accommodation.
To find an African meaning to an European problem.
And the African meaning cannot be achieved because, let's say, if we want to have total independence in Africa, we should not be speaking the language of the colonialists. We should be speaking our languages. And thereby, it will now bring about, it's going to be an enlightenment. Oh, you are Yoruba. Okay, you Yorubas, go your way and speak. You are Hausa, go your way and develop according to your pace, your history, your vision, and your dreams. That should be the thing that we should be doing. Even Leopold Senghor said it, that the Africans are looking forward to Nigeria to succeed. And he said, Nigeria can never succeed. That's 1988. He said, yes, Leopold Senghor of Senegal. It was published in the Economist newspaper, I think in the mid-year 88, with his picture there. He said that for Africa to develop, Nigeria must dissolve. That was his conclusion.
I will come to Major.
It affects every country in Africa, except to some extent Botswana, which was created accidentally. When the British got there, they couldn't pronounce Botswana. So they call it Bechuana land. Those of you who did geography in the early 50s, there was a Bechuana land. It's just a mispronunciation of Botswana by the British colonialists. And they found that at the end of the day, all the people there now speak the same language. That was an accident of creation. And that's why the country is succeeding. Because
I'll come to Major. Now that we have a developing situation, and to me, it feels like there's a stalemate in Sudan now. You have witnessed several coups in Nigeria, and we know that, and war. And we know that in military operation, you have to be decisive. You have to get victory quickly. From the Gowon coup to the counter coup, even to Babangida and Abacha. It was all decisive. Now it feels like there's a stalemate, and they're now saying, "Okay, let's sit down." Do you think there will be any sit down for an agreement, or is going to be one person has to take out the other to emerge victorious?
They have to take out the other to emerge, because the weaker ones now would have some Western influence, pushing them not to agree, not to be the weaker side. They will be fanning them that, look, we will support you. You have to take down the other person. That person is wrong. You are right. And that is what will play out. On both sides, they will have some Western countries behind them.
And that is being
until collateral damage is done, they won't sit down together to agree on anything.
Because for me, trust is broken now, and trust is gone. So
there was never trust from the beginning.
They managed to patch it together, but yes. Now I don't even think they can come back and work out anything. Maybe Baba Ajala can give us his own insight as to what future do you see for Sudan? Do you see a situation where Sudan itself would now be clamoring for a breakup as well? Let's break it up and let each side go.
There's a gradual wind of change, just like Harold Macmillan said many years ago when he came to Nigeria and North Africa. There's an internal evolution, not revolution, amongst Africans to sit back and say, who are we? And when that grows, there'll be a sudden and rapid flow, like a river breaking its back and spreading and flooding everywhere. I studied the Congo, the Republic of the Congo. What is happening is that the Sudan people, who at the end of the day start to either say, let us go our separate ways, a new countries, and we've all forgotten Darfur. The Darfur incident is still there.
I think it's part of what's raising its head. The Darfur incident is what's still raising itself today.
And the main Sudan, you find that maybe about 3 or 4 countries will emerge from there later. And the same
it's very possible.
With Ethiopia, the Tigray people don't see themselves
as Ethiopians
of Ethiopia anymore. They are hell bent on having that. But one thing I'm sad about is that we Africans now go and buy the guns manufactured by the West and tutu it, killing ourselves. And then you see, it is the saddest story of the African.
I hope we can learn to live in peace and try to look for meaningful ways.
Living in peace in separate enclaves is better than living in pieces in a rigid political structure like in Nigeria. We don't know each other. we see the disgrace the Africans have regularly is that the African leaders to go to United Nations and speak European languages as if they are Europeans. The Europeans will be watching them. Who is that one? They say, that man. Which country is it from? Is their native tongue English or French? Or this?
Yeah, so some of them even
Yes,
ask, "Oh, you
yeah.
speak English?" Anyway, that's all we can take for today. Maybe Major Termi can give us his parting shot before we say goodbye to our viewers today.
Not until the West stop interfering, stop igniting, stop pushing we Africans and even the third world into crisis, there will be no peace. There will be no peace. Just let us look at the way they took out our forefathers, our initial political leaders. Kwame Nkrumah was shouting Pan-Africanism. Look at the way they silenced him. Look at the way they framed him up. And look at the way the man ended. Gaddafi was shouting Pan-Africanism in a financial way that, look, let us abandon the dollar. Let us use our own resources to generate our own currencies. Look at the way they ganged up. America and Britain especially, Obama and David Cameron, and they removed him. This man was making waves in the Arab world. That was what's his name? Saddam Hussein.
Yeah.
The world saw how they ganged up against him, saying he has weapons of mass destruction, whereas
Well, there was nothing like that.
they were only bombing where they were manufacturing milk and baby food. Milk and baby food for his people. They use that excuse.
Some people colluded.
They use that and got rid of him. So until, okay, let us use the Ukraine-Russian war now. If not for Putin, America would have finished what is left of Russia after the dissolution of the Soviet Union. And America is still hell-bent on destroying Russia. Russia is just a battleground for America to deal with Russia. Thank God for Putin, who is standing firm that in his lifetime, there will be Russia. If not, Obama started it, which led to the annexation of Crimea. Now, our man, Biden, started the same thing again, building 39 laboratories within a year to produce nuclear base for America in the name of NATO. For how long? These people don't want peace. And the people that could stand firm, are being given different type of names. Look at the way they are blabbing about China. China is this, China is that. Even Huawei, electronics manufacturing company alone, is being branded puppet and part of Chinese secret. Come on.
And even China is gone far. Thank you very much for your time. That's the much we can take today. I'm very sure we'll be here again, same time, same station, and hopefully we'll bring more interesting
topics
to our listeners. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
lọ́jọ́kọ́jọ́ là bẹ léwé kúkú dùkú lóko Podium International wọ́n ti wà tipẹ́tipẹ́ látìgbà tí wọ́n ti ń bàbọ̀ wọn ò fìgbà kan tẹ́rí o wọ́n ti wá ṣe bẹ̀bẹ̀ wọ́n ti gbé bẹ̀bẹ̀ dé Podium Cinema